You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks, good evening. This is the JandR Show. We're live right now on KLRNradio.com, where we do this thing every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined by the other half of the crew, Miss Jen Homestead. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We are surviving the winter weather here in Texas.
Damn global warming. Oh, I'm sorry.
Everybody is, it's so funny because I started posting earlier today where I was like, oh, like we're actually getting some sleet and like some snow mix. And people didn't really comment. And then I was like, oh, the snow is really coming down now tonight in Austin. And a lot of people were like, whatever, like you're probably just freaking out over flurries. Okay, let's make something clear. I lived in New York. Part of my family, we have a place in Colorado we go to all the time. My husband is from Kentucky in the mountains. So I'm not being dramatic here. I'm genuinely surprised at how much snow fell today. And, of course, it was 90 degrees 2 days ago, so nothing was sticking for a very long time, and the roads aren't going to have anything stick at all because it's just simply been too warm. But we did start getting the nice little coating on the grass and on the rails and everything that kids love. And so we had the neighborhood after dark tonight when it was really coming down as we're all playing outside with the snow and just enjoying it. So it's been kind of fun. But it's supposed to freeze tonight, which means all of that wetness will turn into ice, which makes for a nightmare when you live in a place that is mostly made up of bridges and overpasses and waterways.
Fun times, fun times. Damn global warming.
But it was fun while it lasted tonight, and we actually still have more snow. It just started snowing again a minute ago, and it's supposed to snow for another couple hours. It's just kind of crazy, but it's not completely everyone goes, it doesn't snow in Texas. I'm like, first of all, it does snow in the Panhandle during the winter very regularly, and then second of all, even in places as far south as Austin, we usually get snow a few times a year. We're not talking accumulation. We're just talking it falls from the sky. And but usually not this early. Our winters are really more heavily January and February. So for it to be happening in early December is really kind of crazy, but also kind of fun. A little early white Christmas. Merry Christmas to us.
Woohoo! So we'll probably at some point tonight talk about the fact that it is, of course, December 7th, which makes this the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Have some audio we may play about that in a bit. But I kind of wanted to start off, considering, it's snowing in Texas and everybody wants to blame climate change for everything. I found an interesting story right before we went on the air that apparently there have been some folks doctoring information about climate change. This is actually from, as soon as it opens up, because it's taking forever. This is from Principia Scientific International. Titlegate, climate alarmist caught faking sea level rise. Fun times, fun times. Alarmist scientists have been caught red-handed tampering with raw data in order to exaggerate sea level rise. The raw adjusted data from 3 Indian Ocean gauges, Aden, Karachi, and Mumbai, showed the local sea level trends in the last 140 years had been either very gently rising, neutral, or in some cases even negative, i.e. sea levels had fallen in certain areas. But after the evidence had been adjusted by tidal records gatekeepers at the Global Data Bank, and that would be Permanent Service for Mean Sea Level, it suddenly showed a sharp and dramatic rise. The whistle was blown by two Australian scientists, Dr. Albert Parker and Dr. Clifford Ollier, in a paper for the Earth Systems and Environment. And then it goes on to explain, how they tampered with the data and what they did and why they did it. So yeah, fun times. So, we talk about all this stuff that's hit politics and, media's fake news and everything else. Apparently even scientists are faking news now. Fun times.
I mean, does this surprise anybody?
No, and it's the same thing that I've said for a long time. The thing you got to pay attention to with studies, whatever the case may be, is who funded the studies, because now it's all about the money, and people don't fund studies unless they're going to get the results that they want, and the only way you can keep them coming back and handing you money so you can stay at the trough and keep feeding off of them is to give them the results that they want.
Right. Anybody that or any organization or any depending, like maybe even a group belonging to a certain field, if they are the ones that are pushing and funding it, you have to take that into consideration. What you want to look for more are these actually like professional and independent groups that do all kinds of studies, and they don't focus on certain kinds in order to get certain results. That they are like, this is what they do, is to look for impartial information, come from an impartial place and look for information and try to piece it together. But too often there's a gazillion studies that come out every single day, and they are backed by someone with a political agenda, and they disguise it with cute names and official sounding titles, but that's really what it is. And so you just have to be really careful. I mean, everybody has to know that all data can be manipulated.
Yeah, I mean, but the funny thing is, you see this kind of stuff come out, and now, in a couple days, somebody with a PhD behind their name is going to be like, well, that's really not true. They didn't really doctor the data. And I'm like, yeah, they kind of did. I mean, I've had the same argument with people all the time that are like, you're one of those climate deniers. I'm like, no, I don't deny climate changes. It's called weather. Climate has always changed. But it cycles, and it goes. I mean, and I'm not saying that we don't need to take care of our environment. That's not. That's part of what being conservative is. That's the base word of conservative: to conserve, right. To save. That doesn't just mean the government. That means the planet. Hello.
Right. And I completely am I am absolutely in treating this planet, like on board with treating this planet well. I'm absolutely about conservation of all kinds, whether it's water, animal, environment, ecosystems especially, because that's such a delicate balance. But that doesn't mean that we need the government to force absurd regulations that are not going to have a positive effect on the climate at all, or on this earth at all. And I don't necessarily think that we haven't had any impact. I mean, I think that of course we have. There's a crap ton of people on this planet compared to 1,000 years ago, and so that's got to have some sort of effect. And we saw it, obviously in other ways, not just climate change, but like with deforestation, which we have now almost all but gotten under control. With the diminishing rainforests, again, we've mostly got under control. We're helping, we used to have threats of extinction of a lot more animals on a regular basis, and now we've kind of reined that in with limiting poaching and all sorts of other things like that. So I think that it's safe to say that we've had some sort of effect. Have we had so much of an effect that we are causing superstorms and more hurricanes than ever, and for the temperature of the earth to skyrocket and then nosedive, and that's all because of us and our fossil fuels? I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. I think it's profoundly arrogant, actually. And I think that it's pretty absurd to think that in just such a short time, we could have such a significant impact that these people claim to be so dire. It just doesn't make any logical sense, and it sure does not make scientific sense unless you are looking at, propagated data.
I don't know how do we get back to reality at this point? That's one of my questions, because we now basically have people, they color the news based on perception. They're coloring scientific data based on perception to make sure that they keep money in their pockets. I don't know how we get back to reality at this point.
I don't know either. I was going to say, and I forgot to add on to this last part, was I do wish that if these people were honest, if they were honest to goodness, just really concerned for this planet and concerned for the welfare of life on this planet and how we are affecting it, if that was what they were concerned with, and it made them cry themselves to sleep like so many claim, it breaks their heart like so many claim, it keeps them up at night like so many claim, they have ulcers because of it, all of these things, then why are they not working to spread actual, responsible conservation instead of just lobbying the government for, environmental policies and regulations, as opposed to actually teaching communities how to be better to this planet, instead of organizing programs to clean up the trash and to, even if they want to do something where they're funding something to be more green, then that needs to happen on a community level, not on a forced governmental level.
Well, come on, you dumb Republican. Everybody knows the government can do better jobs at stuff than we the people can. I mean, that's the whole point of taxation. It's about pooling our resources and making things better for everybody. Okay, I can't.
Not only that, but it's a lot easier for people to just throw money at something in hopes that it gets better, and to be able to pat themselves on the back and say, like, well, see, I donated to the Save the Elephants Fund, and so I got my little card in the mail, and I got a beautiful 8x 10 print of the African elephant named Nimumu. And so that's who I've adopted. And so now I feel really good, when all they've done is give it to some bureaucratic organization. So it's really easy to throw money at stuff and hope that that's helping. It's much harder to actually do the work. And if you're really that concerned, if it really hurts your heart so much and it keeps your mind racing, then get in the communities, get involved, and teach people how to be responsible stewards of this earth.
I think I got the same 8x10 print, but mine told me the elephant's name was Hillary. My bad. All right, so anyway, but this all goes back to the same thing that we usually talk about from a conservative perspective. We have socialists and liberals who seem to think government is the end-all, be-all, the fixer of all problems. And we're looking at things going, you know what, we could probably fix this a lot better on our own. So this actually dovetails into an idea that I came up with today, because I saw the article that you guys had put out. I think it was a Misfits article anyway, about a charity of some kind. I had an idea. Now that we're back to doing a couple of shows a week, what if we find one charity a month and kind of highlight them? Maybe see if somebody wants to come on and talk about it a little bit, or if nothing else.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, the one that I was pushing today was the MAV project, which is MAV is a great follow on Twitter. I think he's at Maverick21. I need to look it up.
I think it was at Maverick21. I think.
Yeah, I think that's his handle. So he is someone who went deaf later in life. He has not always been deaf. And so he does have the experiences of a hearing person, and then also the experiences of a deaf person. And fortunately, he does have, because of having been hearing most of his life, he is able to speak in a way and to people that they very often don't know that he has become deaf now. And so, but he saw the different challenges that the deaf community faces, and particularly as far as employment goes. And so he, years and years ago, he lived in San Francisco, and he had started helping homeless there and reconnecting them with family members, helping them with getting, low-level skilled jobs, even just feeding them and making them work for the food, basically. And so when he moved back to Texas and was experiencing a new life as a deaf person, he decided to do basically a similar type thing for the deaf. And he gets, especially the youth, like he gets them jobs at places, even just internships, sometimes volunteering. And then he has his own expertise in, I think it's painting and some other kind of construction-ish working. And so he does different projects for different places, and he uses these people, and sometimes they're paid, sometimes it's volunteer stuff, but it gets them in the community, and it gets the community knowing who they are and learning how to interact with them. I think a lot of people just don't know how to. So there's stuff like that going on with people all over this country, that they're doing really great things, changing lives. And it'd be great to highlight some of their charities and that they're using the money to do real work. Really good work that is actually helping people and making a difference. It's very, very cool.
Well, I mean, I kind of had a bit of an epiphany over the last couple of days because, we talk about this all the time, but I'm like, you know what? We've gotten to the point where we've got pretty good followings. I mean, we have people that loyally check in. We've got people, we still get most of our listens from the podcast sites, which that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. But I'm just thinking, with as big as we're getting, it's about time that we really start steering some things back in other directions instead of just always ranting about politics. Maybe starting to slowly find ways to make things better. And I actually kind of had an idea, and I'm going to start looking into maybe starting some sort of a foundation. And I'm not sure what shape it's going to take or exactly how long it's going to take, but kind of the same general idea of like Liberty Health Share, but it's for people that, have like day-to-day struggles and things that they can't deal with. Instead of having to run to the government and ask for help for money, we could basically pull resources from people that are willing and then take applications from folks and get things approved. And it would be a better accountability and less red tape for everybody. And I don't know if it's going to work because I've never thought about doing anything like that before, but I have an attorney friend of mine who's going to be looking into it. So it is something that we're going to start doing. And I also thought that one of the things we could start doing, since I do like 14 million hours of radio a week anymore, we could start highlighting some positive things every so often instead of just yelling about how broken things still are. I'm over, as much as I like yelling, don't get me wrong, because since I've started doing radio, I've put down blood pressure medication, I've been losing weight, I actually am not quite as much of an insomniac because I'm not always stressed out, but at the same time, things really just aren't really getting better for everyday Americans. The economy's moving in the right direction. The president's done some great things. Congress is actually starting to move on a few things. But at the same time, it's not really getting to the average Americans yet. And I think it's time that we start trying to find ways to give back, even if it's small ways, by like highlighting charities and starting to find ways to help people in communities and stuff. Because one of the things that I'm tired of hearing about is homeless veterans. I am a conservative, and people always threaten to yank my conservative card when I say this, but there should be no reason why anyone who at one point in time in this country wrote a check for everything up to and including potentially their lives should be sleeping under a bridge. We have failed those people.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. Whether it's there's a lot of things that can go wrong that do go wrong for various veterans to be in that position. And we've got to figure out a way to fix that, stop it before it happens. And then obviously help those that are already there and need the leg up.
I don't know. The whole thing just annoys me. Because I saw a story about it again the other day, and it's just, and there are towns that are starting to do it right, I think. Like I saw a story, I guess it was about 6 months ago, and I think it was either in New Mexico or Arizona. They were actually spending money to put basically tiny houses together for homeless veterans. It was nothing but really, it was the size of about a tool shed, but it was somewhere they could sleep. They had a clean change of clothes and the ability to get themselves cleaned up. So they were actually starting to be able to go out and look for jobs and try to get interviews and this, that, and the other. And look, I'm not saying that's going to be the end-all, be-all fix for everybody, but if you can get somebody to the point where they have somewhere to sleep, where they can, they have a roof over their head, they have access to running water, they have the ability to clean themselves up, you can't imagine the amount of a self-esteem boost that is. There has to be a way that we can start working towards making sure that these people are taken care of. because we're just not. I mean, we talk about mental health and everything else. We have our entire veteran population. I mean, look at the statistics. Veterans commit suicide more than any other group. They're homeless more than any other group. We are failing these people, and it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not just about the veterans, because there's more people that are struggling in this country. But they're the ones that stick out to me the most, because they're the ones that put everything on the line and came back, and the government's failed them. It annoys me. It irritates me. There has to be something that we can do. And I apologize. This actually really wasn't something that I planned on bringing up, but it's been something that's been on my heart for the last few weeks. I don't know. I always get sentimental around Christmas time anyway, and thinking about people sleeping under a bridge when I'm freezing to death inside my own house because I'm too cheap to turn up my heater. Kind of makes me realize exactly how cold it is outside right now. And it makes me feel bad for the people that are sleeping under bridges. So maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyway, enough about that. I don't know. Sorry, like I said, I really didn't plan on bringing that up or going into it.
No, it's a great time of year to talk about it. It's a great subject to discuss. I don't think it's anything to apologize for. And I think you're absolutely right. I think obviously our focus a lot of times will be on people like the veterans, but this just homelessness in this country, and I'm not talking about just the people that unfortunately have found themselves there from extremely poor choices, but there are still a lot of people that have just had some really bad breaks, and they don't have the family or the friends or the employer or whatever that can help them, that can give them a place to stay, a couch to sleep on until they can figure it out, that can help them get a button-down shirt so that they look better for the interview, that won't vouch for them and say, hey, and I did a thread a little while ago about a guy that this is something that I tried to do, but every season, particularly Christmas season, I end up needing a lot of extra people, and it varies from year to year, but we need hands, we need bodies. We need no one with any specific special skill. I need them to look clean, show up on time, and do everything I ask of them. I will teach them things if they don't already know how to do it, or I have other employees that will, other managers that will. And so years ago, it's probably been almost a decade, I had a guy that walked in, and I would sometimes get these. It would be someone on probation, and they would put their I would have to sign showing that they tried to get a job. And this guy also had something from Salvation Army. And what it is that after a certain period of time of staying at Salvation Army, to keep your bed, you have to prove that you're looking for work. So they also have a sign sheet. This guy was a vet, but I've helped others that have not been. And I signed his sheet for him. I was like, oh, we're taking applications. Yeah, blah, blah. And he started to walk out the door and he said, are you the one that's going to, accept me? Are you the one that's going to decide, is what he said. And I said, yeah, I am. And we were not very busy. And he said, can I just talk to you real quick? And that's kind of unconventional. I don't normally do that, but I went, why not? We're not busy. I'll sit down with him. And he basically just said he needed a chance and that it wasn't anybody else's fault why he found himself in the place that he did now, but that he'd been doing good. He'd been, minding the law. He'd been keeping his bed, which has pretty strict rules at the Salvation Army, and that he would, basically do anything to just get to work a few shifts and make a little bit of money. And so I basically told him I ran a tight ship and I have high expectations, and I understand that life throws circumstances at you can't always control, but I expect you to do X, Y, and Z while you're here. Well, he showed up, he washed some dishes, he bussed tables, and I used him again, and then I used him again. And then I called his PO and I called the SA and asked if he could have an extension on his curfew so that he could work events that went later. And it was approved, and I had weekly check-ins with them. He finally got off probation 4 months later. He stayed at Salvation Army a few months longer, and then he had saved up enough to get a room with a coworker of ours, and they moved in together. And it's about 7 years later, and he owns his own bar. So, these kinds of things happen, and there are a lot of people, and it wasn't just because he was a vet. I mean, in general, there are people like that out there, and there are a lot of people not giving them any chance at all and not really caring. And so from then on, I decided as often as I could when I knew I would need just some people that didn't have to have any specific skills. I would go over there, give their job coordinator my needs, and I get a couple of calls from the Salvation Army every Christmas season, and I usually use at least 2 or 3 of them. They're not all going to turn out like he did, but it's worth the risk to take a chance on at least one happening that way.
That is awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get the break out of the way. When we come back, we do have some politics to discuss. I put it off for as long as I could, but there's lots of stuff going on in the news. Apparently, liberal snowflakes heads are exploding everywhere because there's now the potential of concealed carry reciprocity. Jerusalem has been recognized as Israel's capital, which has them exploding-headed again. Never mind the fact that the Senate recently voted 90-0 to recognize the capital and then freak out when the president actually does it. But we'll talk about that and more when we come back. This is America, Jen and Rick. Sorry, that's the next show. My bad. This is the Jen and Rick Show. We'll be back here in just about 3 minutes. Stay tuned. Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Don't mind us, folks. We were researching, and I didn't realize the stuff had stopped playing. My bad. I hope you guys weren't sitting there listening to nothing for too long. I don't think it was too terribly long, but it might have been. For those of you listening to the podcast, you won't know what I'm talking about, so just continue to enjoy the show. Now, for those of you that are listening live, I do apologize. I was actually looking for some of the Al Franken resignation speech today. I did manage to find it, though, because it sounded pretty much just like this.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
No, actually, joking aside, he basically said, he's sorry that he hurt people's feelings, and he's sorry that he did what he did. But some of the things that people are bringing up, he seems to remember differently. And while he may or may not resign, it will happen at a later date. In other words, it was about a 30-minute long hashtag sorry not sorry. Fun times, fun times.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Well, it was even a little bit more than that. I mean, he basically was like, they're liars and this and that, and I shouldn't have to resign, but I'm going to. And then it was even gross because the women that asked him to resign that really went on the obviously kind of coordinated media thing yesterday, asked him, all sat there very emotional as he's resigning and then asked him to hug. Now, I think that's because they didn't actually want him to resign, but they knew that they had to. And so they were kind of forced to do it for a political point. And, he was a sacrificial lamb. Unfortunately for him, I guess. I mean, I still think he deserves to resign either way. But the reason why the party all of a sudden turned on him was to sacrifice him. And then notice that also he didn't actually resign. He said he promises to resign. He has not resigned yet. He promises to resign sometime in the coming weeks, which in the coming weeks, in 2 weeks is Christmas. If you're not resigning before Christmas, then he's not resigning till after the holidays, which means then maybe it'll blow over and people will forget about it, and he can get away with not resigning for a little while longer. I mean, that's really pretty ridiculous, but I think what they're doing is they're waiting to see what happens with Moore, and then if Moore wins, they're waiting to see what the GOP does, and if the GOP does not oust him from the Senate, then they will renege on Franken's deal.
No, that's exactly what it is. Right now, this is all about perception. So the Democrats, for the moment, because of the whole Moore thing, and you and I have been pretty outspoken about Moore. I've already told everybody that, basically if I lived in Alabama, I wouldn't vote for him. But the simple fact of the matter is there are some big differences here. Yes, Moore's behavior is atrocious. Yes, we already pretty much know that he's attracted to really, really young people. But there's no proof other than he said, she said about what it is that he has or hasn't done. The other guy that's over here basically being the sacrificial lamb for the Democrats, there's photographic proof of the things that he's done. But what they're doing is they're trying to put themselves in a position to be able to assume the moral high ground, because if he gets elected and then if he's made to resign, then they're going to go ahead and sacrifice Franken probably right before that happens, so they can prove, well, see, we did it first. And then honestly, I think the one thing that I see a little bit differently than you is I think honestly what will happen is if Moore is elected and is seated in the Senate, I think that will be when the Democrats will get rid of Al Franken, because that will put them into the position of perception-wise having the moral superiority when it comes to this, oh my God, people touch people inappropriately argument. And I think that's kind of what they're going for. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Everybody knows that I really didn't think we would have President Trump right now today. But we do, so it's not like I've never been wrong before, but it's just one of those gut feeling things for me. And I think a lot of it for them is perception. They're trying to position themselves as the good party because they're painting us as the evil one. To take this a step further,
as if, by the way, that we have not demanded other people resign that have behaved inappropriately or otherwise, engaged in misconduct. I mean, get real. Like, they're the only party that has. No, in fact, you're the party that covers it up as often as you can.
Yeah, pretty much. The interesting thing about that, to take that a step further, there was an interesting thing that happened in an article on from The Hill today, I think it was today anyway, about Representative Conyers. In the article from The Hill, they actually listed him as the Republican from Michigan when he's a Democrat.
Good grief. Of course. That's so ridiculous. Go
ahead.
I was going to say real quick on the Franken thing. There's one other theory out there, and it was actually put forth by our friend Patriot Musket, and he is there was a Red State article that was written centered completely around that by Kimberly Ross. And what he basically says is that, Minnesota is not like a purely Democratic state, and there's a Democratic governor there right now. So part of the deal here is that, as opposed to some other situations where people are in, they haven't called for Bob Menendez to step down because a GOP governor would be appointing his replacement. But in this case, they can do it where they could have a Democratic governor would be calling for the special election or calling for replacement. But Patriot Musket is saying that the Minnesota seat is not as safely Democratic as people think. He only won it by 300 votes, much of which we later found out were illegal. And so this is a very dicey area there, and they know it. And so that's why they're not really he's not actually resigning, and he's being really vague about when he resigns. And he found this statute. Under Minnesota law, the governor can make temporary appointments to fill vacancies. Special elections are required to fill Senate seats. That law says that if the seat is vacated at least 11 weeks before the regular primary, the special election is held during the November election. In 2018, the primary is scheduled for August 14th. If Fraikin resigns any time before the end of May, the special election to fill his seat would be held during the upcoming midterm elections, which means that it could be turned over to a Republican. If he can hold out until after then, if he can drag it out long enough, then that seat stays a Democrat because it gets appointed instead of being pushed into a special election. It gets appointed until 2020.
I mean, there's all kinds of different things that could be going on there, so who knows? But what I did find was funny was the whole it smacked of Clinton because. To my knowledge, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And this guy's like, well, some of these things that people are saying, I seem to remember them differently. Really? Really? That's your argument? You don't remember these things happening exactly as they've been described, so you don't think they happened? But, I just noticed something else, and this is not really breaking news, but it is for me now because I was in Twitmo when this happened. Bastards. Former Congressman Harold Ford Jr. fired for misconduct by Morgan Stanley.
Of course.
Yet another Democrat hits the chopping block. Go figure.
Yeah, and this is going to continue to happen. I also just saw that, oh my gosh, is it the X-Men director maybe? Oh, I just saw it fly by a little bit ago. But yeah, someone being accused of raping a 17-year-old, like in a hotel room. A man raping a 17-year-old guy. I won't say kid, but I won't say man. Guy.
Man-child.
Yeah. I mean, this is, Bryan Singer. A lawsuit has been filed against X-Men director Bryan Singer for sexual assault of 17-year-old. So, I mean, this is just going to keep happening. This is going to keep coming out. And, maybe that's what it takes is that for all the dirty laundry to be aired so that, we could kind of start from square one. I don't know. I do know that I also believe that I don't know which ones I'm not sure that I believe that any of the ones so far are this, but I do think eventually some innocents will get caught up in it. The ones so far, everything seems pretty credible, at least to the extent that they were extremely inappropriate and unprofessional, which warrants being fired from your job in pretty much every job you could ever hold. So criminal charges, maybe not, but everything so far seems to be pretty credible, but that whenever something like this goes down, and especially when there are kind of like witch hunts and whistleblowers, innocent people get caught in the mix a lot. And so I just hope that, I hope that doesn't happen, but I fear that it will.
Speaking of kind of shady accusations, have you heard about what's going on with Rodney Anderson from OU?
No. Oh, I've read a bit about it, and obviously my OU fam is all over Facebook with it. I just haven't had time to really dive into it and get to the meat of it to see what I really think. What's the deal? The
long and short of it is about 2-3 days ago, a woman filed an emergency protective order accusing Rodney Anderson of rape. So during the initial investigation, because the police typically get involved with an EPO when somebody's making allegations like that. So they start investigating it, right? So now all this stuff starts coming out about all these text messages that she's been sending him for months, wanting to know why he won't date her, why he won't respond to her text messages, why is she not good enough for him. So from what we've been able to gather forensically so far, it actually seems like this might be one of those things where she was jilted and basically filed an EPO as revenge.
Ooh, yowzas. See, that's always tough. That's kind of similar to that Jackie situation in the Rolling Stone story. Someone not paying me attention and not doing whatever, and so then I fabricate, except for she didn't fabricate it against the person. She fabricated it about somebody else to get the person's attention that she wanted. But, yeah, that does not sound good.
Well, I mean, it's what I've expected to start happening. The problem with this, with as much of it that's going on, we're going to have so much of it breaking now that some of this stuff is going to wind up being fake, and we won't know about it for months and months and months later.
Well, I think the other thing that's going to happen, even more than just like outright fake, just outright lies, I think what's going to happen more is that things are going to get blown out of proportion and over-exaggerated, and everyone is on level 10 right now. I mean, we're all operating at like tension level 10. And so being wound that tight, so many things, it's kind of like what, I just don't mean we like you and I are, I just mean in general, like the society right now is, that things that normally get an eye roll and a STFU are going to be labeled harassment, which is something the far left has been doing for a while and been pushing for a while. It's just the rest of the country has kind of been like, okay, crazies, whatever, like he made a joke, it's not that big a deal. Well, now the jokes are a big deal. Now the tweet is a big deal. Now everything is a big deal. And so I think what's going to really happen is that some of that stuff that 2 months ago would have been like, you know what, he's a jerk, tell him to shut up and sit down and don't ever talk to me like that again, is going to become either attempted criminal charges or lawsuit. And tarnishing their reputation, dragging them through the mud, pulling out all the skeletons and all of that over things that really should not be lumped into the same category as these men who are, emotionally, physically, and assaulting women and abusing them and or raping them. And so those kinds of people are going to get caught in the crossfire with things that get extremely overblown.
All right, so we're down to about 10 minutes, and I definitely have at least 2 more topics I wanted to try to go over. One of which I'm not sure if you've heard about yet tonight, but apparently there's now officially going to be an investigation into Planned Parenthood's recent accusations of selling off baby body parts.
Yes, I have not had a chance to read anything about it yet, but I did get to see, the headline, and fantastic.
I'm over here doing the Fat Man Happy Dance, but you can't see me. Probably a good thing.
This
probably
is
a good thing you can't see me.
absolutely fantastic. It should have happened a long time ago. And honestly, it should have happened not because of someone being pro or anti, Planned Parenthood, or being in the office and being Republican or Democrat. It should have happened because we, as taxpayers, and the Congress has afforded them, millions of dollars of our money to use for this organization. That's why it calls for an investigation, not because of the politics.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's, a real reason that should be investigated. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with politics. It has to do with the fact of, are we basically chopping babies up and selling them off as parts? Because if we are, that needs to stop. It doesn't have anything to do with politics. Whether you agree with the idea of abortion or not, I can't believe we live in such a ghoulish society that we're okay with babies being sold off like it's car parts from a chop shop. I have a huge problem with this. I don't understand why anybody wouldn't. Even if you're okay with abortion itself, why would this be okay?
Well, and this is the thing, and I've talked before about how most of my friends are liberal. I live in a liberal city. I've worked in a liberal industry. I know that I work with people that are in the Hollywood, Broadway, entertainment circles, and I can't get away from it. But so many of my friends that are extremely pro-choice were absolutely shocked and disturbed by the revelations of all of this. And as much as we saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, doctored, BS, this and that, edited, blah, 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 my people in real life were going, even with an edit, still damning, still really damning. Even with, no, that's not good. Oh, she laughed about that. Oh, wait, I didn't know they sold the fetal tissue without compensating the mothers. And that's something that a lot of them, that wasn't something that occurred to me as much, but they're like, well, these women did want an abortion, they go in. So you're completely appalled by the fact that these pieces were sold off in the first place. They're appalled by that too, because they didn't know that was happening. It's not disclosed. But they're also appalled that these mothers are kind of coerced to sign off on that for their aborted fetus to be a science experiment. But Planned Parenthood is making hundreds of thousands of dollars off of these parts, and these mothers who came into them, part of the reason that most of them are getting abortions is because they're poor, because they cannot afford this child. They are in a bad spot, or they do not have the support of a father or a family or whatever else. And here's Planned Parenthood convincing them to have abortions and then profiting off of them, not just on what they pay Planned Parenthood, but profiting off of their aborted baby. And that, to so many of my friends, was so appalling that they were taking such advantage of people that most of which were very destitute, and how disgusting that was on an even different moral level. And it was one I hadn't actually considered all that much, because I hear, aborted baby and parsing off parts, that was enough for me to want to vomit. But they're right. That other part of it is bad too. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean that honestly makes it even worse, because even I didn't really know about that part of it. I was too appalled by the chopping them up, much less you guys are making
right.
money
So that's what all of us are thinking about, right? So all of us that are already anti-abortion, that's the thing that we focused on. My friends that are pro-abortion, they were disgusted by that too, but not pro-abortion, but pro-choice. That they were disgusted by that too, but they were also extremely disgusted by the manipulation or coercion of the mother, and then of profiting off of them to such an extravagant degree, when at least if you're going to sell their aborted baby's body parts, like, give them the choice to partake in some of the profit, because it's their DNA that you are using and selling.
You would think. I mean, as weird as that is to say, I mean, it does seem like
which is where I went ahead and say, now do you understand why I call them completely unethical? And they're like, no, you're right. I can't defend that. It's so unethical. And so what makes you think that the rest of their practices is ethical if they're doing something like that, something that appalls you so much as taking advantage of those destitute mothers? And they're like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically the gist of it, because, I mean, it's no different than all this other stuff that we're seeing coming out now. If they've done those that we know about, what else have they done that we don't know about yet? So, I mean, but that's one reason why I'm happy to see that this investigation is happening. Another thing that I don't know if you've heard about yet that I definitely wanted to talk to you about, and this is not a Harry Potter reference, but I do have a question. Have you heard of Dumbledore's Army?
Okay, that's like part of the resistance calling themselves that?
Yes. The newly appointed CFPB director has reversed policies at the CFPB. Resistance forms Dumbledore's Army, uses text messages and encrypted apps to secretly communicate about government business. Does anybody remember when the shadow government thing used to be like crazy Alex Jones tinfoil hat talk? It's not really crazy anymore.
Yeah, not so much.
So yeah, there's some employees, including a few of the Bureau's top officials, have welcomed their new leader. Others, pointing to Mr. Mulvaney's earlier hostility toward the agency and its mission, are quietly resisting. One small group calls itself Dumbledore's Army. According to two of the people who were familiar with their discussions, the name is a reference to a secret resistance force in the Harry Potter books. An atmosphere of intense anxiety has taken hold. Several employees said in some cases, conversations between staff that used to take place by phone or text now happen almost exclusively in person or through encrypted messaging apps.
This is
This is weird.
I mean, you're right. This is so, like, conspiracy theory level.
Can you imagine if this had been happening when Barack Obama was president, the backlash and the outcry that would be going on.
Oh my gosh, it would be off the charts.
Now
this is just insane.
I want to take this one step further because I've done this with some liberal friends of mine, and this is where I lose them. But it seems to make perfect sense to me. So right now we have Donald Trump going on, international tours. He's done the tour with Europe. He went to China. So as soon as he leaves Europe, Barack Obama goes to Europe. Trump goes to China. As soon as he leaves China, Barack Obama goes to China. Can you imagine if when President Barack Obama was on his world apology tour after he was first elected in 2008, if every time he went somewhere within a week and a half, 2 weeks, former President Bush was right there where he just was? Can you imagine what the Democrats would be saying right now? So we have two very, very huge problems going on here. We have people that have gotten to the point where the resistance has now infiltrated the FBI, because we now know that the majority of the people that Mueller's been using for investigative purposes were resistance. They were anti-Trump. They're pro-Hillary Clinton. Some of them have made donations to Hillary Clinton. Most of them have ties in one way or another to the whole anti-Trump movement, and that whole thing is falling apart too. I mean, this is where the Hill kind of contradicted itself, because in one article they're calling what's his name a Republican, and then later the same day they put out an article saying that Mueller's investigation is pretty much over because it's so racked with controversy because everybody was pro-Hillary, anti-Trump, that it's basically all fallen on its face. I mean, all of this just, it seems like something you would see in a movie, and a badly done movie at that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's exactly what it is, and I feel like that's kind of how it's been since pretty much the primaries last year. And I keep thinking, like, it's going to stop, it's going to slow down, that can't be true, this won't happen like this. And yeah, it feels like we're in a never-ending, like, really bad movie, but also with some, I don't know, like like ones that we go, oh, come on, at least make it believable.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, this is what this is. It's like, oh, come on, at least make it believable. People would blah, 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 blah. No, this is real life. This is real freaking life. I mean, it was bad enough, and I don't mean it was bad that he won. I mean, it was bad enough that the world was like, if you had made the movie and Donald Trump wins in the end, you're like, no way in, hell does that happen? And, well, he did pretty handily. And then to continue on with everything else that has come out of it, small and big, even on like local scales, it's just crazy to think how this all got going as far as back as the primaries.
All right, folks, so we're going to do things a little bit differently on the way out. We're actually going to listen to a couple minutes of the Pearl Harbor speech from Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Perfect.
And this is going to do it for this particular episode. Stay tuned here in just a couple minutes. As soon as this speech concludes, we will have the kickoff for the America Off the Rails, the co-hosted edition with my co-host, Social Claude. So stay tuned. Do hope you guys enjoy this, though. As soon as I remember to unmute the tab. Hang on. Yeah, where did it go? There we go.
Of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
That's going to do it, folks. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned for America Off the Rails coming up next.